Around 15 years ago, when both of my kids were toddlers, I was putting them to bed one night, and my son was adamant that he wear his favorite red race car pajamas. I happily obliged, helped him change into them, and tucked him into bed. Then, I sat down at my kitchen table with a friend who had come over to chat and catch up. The way that my apartment was set up, you could see my kids' bedroom doorway from the kitchen table. My friend and I were talking for a while before we were suddenly interrupted by the sound of my son screaming. We both turned and looked at the bedroom doorway and saw my son standing there loudly crying, shrieking, and wearing his green pajamas with airplanes on them. Everything inside of me was screaming that this was wrong. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end, and a cold shiver shot down my spine. My friend and I wordlessly stared at each other for a second. We both knew that my son couldn't change his pajamas by himself yet. We looked back at the doorway, and my son was gone. We ran to the bedroom and found him tucked in bed, still sleeping peacefully in his red race car pajamas. My friend asked me if I saw him standing there in his green airplane pajamas, and I confirmed that I had. My friend freaked out and left. I slept on my kids' bedroom floor that night to make sure nothing happened to them. My friend and I still talk about it to this day. It's one of the craziest things that's ever happened to me. My son, of course, doesn't remember any of it, but he loves hearing the story of how his doppelganger scared the crap out of us.
I heard my friends' voices, and they swear they never called my name or said anything. It's 2 days later. I can't unhear it. So here's the story. Just 2 days ago, I was camping at Leavitt Lake, California. If you don't know about this lake, it's a small lake up in the Sierra Nevadas at about 9,000 feet elevation. This lake is only accessible via an unmaintained service road, meaning the only way to access this lake is by a high ground clearance, 4x4 vehicle. It's about a 1-hour off-road trail to even reach the lake. However, the trailhead is about 1.5 hours west of the Sonora Junction, off of the 108. Once you reach the lake, it's almost like the lake is in an arena. There's a large rock wall surrounding, and then an open side that looks out over the whole valley. Super secluded. Not many people up there. Now that you understand where this place is, I'd like to mention the camp setup. Total of 4 vehicles, 6 people. The list of names are Ethan, Mason, Matt, Brandon, Josh, and myself. Mason, Ethan, Brandon, and myself all have rooftop tents. Matt and Josh slept in floor tents. The campsite was set up, so the 4 vehicles surrounded the fire pit, and then the 2 tents were somewhere in the middle. We arrived Saturday morning, early. Got up to the lake around 11 a.m. We all quickly unpacked and set up the camp. We all ate some lunch and sat in a circle making jokes and such. During this time, we were talking about how it's pretty windy and that the night might be pretty cold. I tend to overpack, so I mentioned to both Josh and Matt, who were sleeping in tents, that I have an extra blanket that's super thick. I'm going to keep in my tent, so if they need it, come knock on the tent and I'll give it to them. Fast forward, it's getting late, the fire's going out. We all decide it's time for bed. It's about 11 p.m. We crawl into our tents, and it feels like, within minimum, the wind starts picking up. And I mean really picking up. This felt like I was in a hurricane. I could feel my truck shaking pretty good from this. I managed to get myself to fall asleep, and around 1:30 a.m. to 2 a.m., I wake up super suddenly and I hear my friend Matt whispering my voice. I've heard this guy whisper my voice. I'm 110% positive I heard this, but it didn't feel right. I didn't see any flashlight or anything, and there was no knocking. I'm awake, and I tell myself, if it's him, he'll say my name again, or knock. A couple minutes go by, nothing but super violent wind slapping my tent around. I'm confused, a little scared, but I brush it off. Maybe it's my imagination, and I just woke up from a dream. It takes a minute, but I manage to get myself to nod off again. At about 3 a.m., I'm woken up by this wind. It was like the wind doubled. The rain fly on my tent was slapping so hard, I couldn't believe it. As I sat there for about 5 minutes, contemplating if I should get out and remove it, I hear my friend Ethan call my name. Not a yell, not a whisper, super calm, like when we were sitting at the fire and he's trying to get my attention. Just a normal Alec. My heart stops. I don't know why, but just deep down, I knew there's no way my friend at 3 a.m. hurricane force winds is going to call my name, especially not in that manner. I sat there, paralyzed. Within a minute, I hear my other friend Mason say, "Oh, he's got that shit on." My mind shifts. Something in my head made a connection. The rain fly. Maybe they were both outside, attempting to remove their fly, and looked over to see mine is still on. Or maybe they heard mine slapping around, and were trying to figure out what the noise was. I felt at ease for a second, hearing Mason's voice. So I unzipped the window on my tent facing their vehicles. My heart completely stopped. Pitch black. Neither on was outside. I quickly zipped my tent again and sat there for a couple seconds. There's no way I heard them. There's just no way. Suddenly, my truck moves. This wasn't the wind. The only way to describe this was a raccoon jumping on my truck bed. I have a truck bed cover on under my tent, so there is about 12 inches of space from the bottom of my tent to the top of the bed cover. It felt like this thing jumped from the rear bumper, under my tent, and then up onto the roof of my truck, and then finally hopped onto the roof of my tent. I could literally see the indent from where it was standing. Then a huge gust of wind came, and it was gone, vanished. I stayed up the rest of the night. When the sun came up, I immediately got out and confronted the friends. All three of them swear they never said my name or spoke. Ethan said he got out in the middle of the night to remove his fly, but never said a word. We all packed up and left. And now here I am, 2 days later, posting this on Reddit because I don't know what else to do. I know I heard them, or their voices at least. But if it wasn't them, what was it? What if I did open my tent thinking it was Matt asking for that blanket? What if I responded to Ethan when he called my name? I just can't stop thinking about it.
I've been telling this story for years, and no one has ever said anything like it has happened to them. Maybe someone here will understand. One afternoon, when I was about 20 years old, I had just come back home from university. As I went to unlock the door, I noticed there were keys already in the lock from the inside. I couldn't get in. My brother must have heard the sound of the keys rattling at the door. "Jane? Is that you?" "Yes, it's me. Open up, I'm starving." A couple of minutes passed, but my brother didn't come down. I called again. No answer. Growing impatient, I pulled out my phone and called him. "Well, stop playing and come open the door already." My brother was silent for a moment, then asked, "Wait, where are you?" I'm outside the house. Come on, open the door. I'm starving. But I'm at Grandpa's. What? You just spoke to me from upstairs 5 minutes ago. Silence. Freddy? Get away from the house. Go to the street. I'm coming to get you. I swear on anything, that voice was my brother's. He believed me too, because I was absolutely terrified, and to this day, we still can't explain what happened. Has anyone else ever heard a loved one's voice when they weren't really there?
When I was little, I can't remember the exact age, but I was between 1st and 4th grade, for sure. I was home alone. My dad was supposed to come from work. I was watching cartoons in my parents' room, and the door had glass that you could see through. I remember vividly. It's not something imagined, nor have I ever had hallucinations. All of a sudden, the front door opened, which was in front of my parents' room, and I could see the silhouette of my dad in his peaky blinder's hat. He said hi with my nickname, dropped his briefcase, and went outside without coming in the room. This wasn't out of the ordinary. We had animals that needed to be fed, and he'd always do that first thing after work. I kept waiting and waiting, and after about 10 minutes, he didn't come back. I went outside to check the backyard. He wasn't there. I kept looking everywhere, but he was just gone. All of a sudden, I heard the keys in the front gate, and there he was, my dad, with his hat still on, his briefcase in his hands, and looking like he just saw me for the first time that day. I asked him where he went, and he looked surprised and told me he just arrived. The silhouette, the hat, the briefcase, the voice, and even the nickname he used were all his, but apparently nobody was there. And no, my dad wasn't the prankster type. Even if he were, I never heard the keys in the front gate the first time, which was extremely loud, and there was no way you couldn't hear it. He also knew I was a scared kid, and I had to stay home alone all the time, so that's out of the question.
So this happened in the past, but I am deciding to share it now. For privacy reasons, my friend will be called V. Me and V got on the same bus every day and every evening. We went to the same school. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Our bus went to a stop that we hadn't gone to before. We picked up some new people. All of them looked like regular people, nothing weird. V and I usually sat next to each other, same with today. Yet as I looked out the window, I saw her. I don't know if I was delusional, but it was her. Down to the hairstyle, the eyes, the hair color, everything was exact. The person even had V's birthmark on her face, and all the freckles were there as well. Yet the person never got on our bus. They just stood there, watching the bus. They had the uniform on, but never went to school, and I never saw them in school either. This happened sometimes when we went to that stop. Still, they never got on. V didn't have any siblings. I was very confused. I tried mentioning it to V, yet I didn't get a response. It seemed no one even noticed apart from me. Out of the years I was there, no one said anything. I stopped seeing this person after around 5 stops. I still don't know what I saw at that bus stop. After a while, I forget about this incident. Unfortunately, I heard that after I stopped going to that school, I had found out that someone had crashed into that very bus stop. Every time I drive past there, it gives me the shivers. Me and V are still friends to this day. My brother who got on that bus didn't even say anything. I'm unsure if V was aware of this, but I'm very sure she and no one else on that bus could see that person. Thoughts?
So last night, around 8 p.m., my best friend was supposed to drop by to drink a few beers and shoot pool. Let's call my friend Brian for anonymity's sake. After all the Father's Day ruckus ended, we were gonna relax and wind down. Perfect Sunday night. At 5 minutes to 8, I hear a knock on my side door, our main entrance. So I get off the couch and head over to let him in. I open the door, and it's Brian, same guy I've known for more than 15 years at this point. A slight smile on his face. Only thing missing was the 12-pack of beers he told me he was bringing. "What's up? You forget the brews? Or did you drink them all on the drive over?" No response. Just this calm smile, but he says nothing. I'm perplexed, to say the least. Before I can tell him to come in, or ask about the silent treatment, he does a quick turn to his right and begins to walk back up my driveway. This is when I noticed his truck is not in the drive, not in any of the parking spots, or anywhere parked on the drive where I can see. I live in a rural area with a long gravel drive, and he's just walking back up it. No vehicle in sight. I finally snap out of it and say something like, "Hey, yo, Brian, what's up?" Again, no response. He continues up my driveway until he reaches a bend and walks out of my sight, heading towards the road. I'm left dumbstruck. Did I offend him some way? Is this a prank? I've known this dude for over a decade, never been a prankster to my knowledge. I close the door and head back to my living room. I grab my phone off the armrest and call Brian. No answer. Wait a few moments. Call again. No answer. I'm home alone. My wife and kids are still at her father's house. We celebrated earlier in the day so they could spend the evening with him. The house is unusually quiet, with just me there. A couple minutes pass. My phone rings. It's Brian. He says he's still on his way over, but he got pulled over on the way to the liquor store, got a seatbelt ticket. He's laughing about it, and sounds like his usual self. He saw my calls, but didn't want to answer while sitting on the side of the road with an officer writing out his ticket. I'm still confused, but I just tell him we're still on, come on over, and we'll shoot pool like we planned. Little over 10 minutes later, and I hear a vehicle door close. I'm a little jumpy, so I'm already out the side door and looking to meet him halfway. It's Brian, holding up his ticket for the seatbelt in one hand, an entire case of beer under the other arm. He's joking that I have to pay the ticket now, since he paid for the beer. I didn't tell him what happened. I haven't told anybody. I tried to forget about it, and just went about our night as if nothing happened. I couldn't think of what to say. How do you explain something like this? I was flummoxed, and just went with it. I hadn't had a drop of alcohol all day. I don't smoke weed or do psychedelics, and I've never had any kind of hallucinations or other mental health issue. I wasn't asleep or sleepwalking. I know what I saw, and I know who it was, or was supposed to be. I'm actually kinda hoping it was all some kind of prank, because I honestly have no other explanation.
This happened to many of us girls that worked together. We worked at a dog kennel place. Many weird things happened, but let me stick to the main theme. We would hear each other speaking when we weren't even there that day. I would constantly see my manager standing next to me as I bathed dogs, like she wanted to say something. But when I turned around, no one was there. We would randomly get called to the kennels or office, and when we got there, no one was looking for us. Sometimes our radios, turned off, would go on and sound, "Bring Fido to the office for pickup." get to the office with said dog, and no one had radioed, nor were the owners there. Twice, one of my friends texted me mad because she saw me talking to manager on my day off, and was upset I didn't go back and talk to her for a bit. I didn't go in. We called it the mimic or imitator, and it was always the same three of us that were mimicked.
As a kid, I used to visit my aunt's trailer house in the fields, a place that always gave me bad vibes. Something about it just felt off. And to make matters worse, my family would talk about how it might be haunted. For a child, this was terrifying, and I dreaded going there, especially at the thought of encountering a ghost. One time, I went to my aunt's for a family get-together. My cousins and I gathered to watch movies, which was a nice distraction from the eerie atmosphere. At some point, I left to use the restroom. I distinctly remember that one of my cousins was asleep right next to me before I got up. Out of fear, I left the restroom door open. Being in any enclosed room in that trailer made me uneasy. While I was in the restroom, something strange happened. My cousin, the one who was asleep, suddenly popped her head around the door and stared at me with a blank expression. Something felt deeply wrong. It looked like her, but it didn't feel like her. I asked, "What do you want?" But she didn't respond. She just kept staring. I repeated the question 3 times, growing more uneasy with each unanswered moment. Then, just as suddenly, she was gone. I didn't hear any footsteps, and all I had seen was her head. Confused and unsettled, I returned to the room and found my cousin still lying in the same spot, fast asleep. I asked her what she wanted, and she looked at me, puzzled, with no idea what I was talking about. To this day, that encounter remains vivid in my memory, and it still gives me the creeps. What did I encounter that day?
It all happened just last night, but I can't stop thinking about it. My boyfriend, his sister, her boyfriend and I stayed outside for quite a while, playing board games, talking, laughing, etc. To be clear, we were completely sober. When we realized it was already late, we started to tidy up the table and slowly head inside. Now, my boyfriend's sister went to the bathroom, and her boyfriend was standing right in front of the bathroom, which is important in the story. From where he was standing, he had a perfect view of what was happening in the corridor leading from the entrance, because the door from the corridor to the inside of the house was glass. My boyfriend started collecting things from the table outside the house and headed to the boiler room, right next to the glass door, to put the trash away. Since I didn't have much to do, I followed him. The moment he noticed me walking next to him, my boyfriend smiled without a word and disappeared behind the door to the boiler room, which was already a bit strange when I think about it now. First of all, my boyfriend rarely smiles at all, let alone for no reason. Secondly, he hasn't said a word, but he always likes to tease me with something like, "Why are you following me around?" and stuff. Not suspecting anything strange, I simply waited for him in front of the boiler room door. But when I noticed the lock on the door from the outside, I closed it, just for fun. His sister's boyfriend, seeing this through the glass door, laughed, probably expecting, like me, that my boyfriend would try to convince me to open the door. Before I realized that not even the slightest sound was coming from inside, I was laughing too. Only after a few minutes did I decide that maybe my boyfriend was making fun of me and wanted to scare me by not saying a word. Then, still in a pretty good mood, I finally unlocked the boiler room door and pushed it open so he could get out. But complete darkness and silence were all that was inside. I felt a bit uncomfortable, so I told him not to make fun of me and that I only locked him there for a moment, as if I felt the need to explain myself. I called his sister over and told her to use a flashlight so I could spot him somewhere inside, but surprisingly the boiler room really was completely empty. Her boyfriend then came closer, peering inside, and was just as confused as I was. Later, he even swore he'd seen the same thing, that my boyfriend had gone in, and that we'd both laughed when I locked the door. My boyfriend's sister was skeptical because she was the only one who hadn't seen it while in the bathroom, so she looked outside the house and called me right after. When I approached her, she just said, "He's sitting on the couch in front of the house," and walked away, as if it wasn't the strangest thing in the world. She was right. My boyfriend was just sitting on the couch without knowing anything, and that made my discomfort even greater. Seeing my shock, he seemed genuinely surprised and concerned, so he asked what was going on, and upon hearing my story, he said that he hadn't been in the boiler room at all. I kept asking him questions, but each time he denied that he was even there. My boyfriend, just for the record, is not a fan of such stories, and they make him anxious and afraid, so he would have no reason to make fun of me. If it weren't for the fact that his sister's boyfriend saw it too, no one would probably believe me.
I had two experiences following each other, which is strange because I don't experience many paranormal encounters. So my mom and I were cooking in the kitchen when we heard a knock at the sliding door, and my dad yell, "Hello," in the exact way he always does when he wants us to open for him. His voice, tone, and rhythm was exact and familiar. So my mom tells me to go open for my dad, and I go to check, but no one is at the door. I walk into the kitchen to tell my mom this, and just as I do, we see him drive up to the gate through the kitchen window. We live on the farm, so the gate is quite far from the house. It couldn't have been a prank, and he's not the type anyway. The next day, around the same time, my mom and I are in the kitchen again. There's another knock at the sliding door. My mom tells me to go open for my dad, and I say something like, "It'd be really creepy if there's no one there again." I'm sure you can guess, but yet again, there was no one at the door. It only happened twice those 2 days after each other, but I really don't know what to make of it.